Welcome, everyone, to The Lesson Plan. That is our official title now that we are on our second episode. And I want to thank those of you who listened to episode 1. If you missed that, you can still listen, of course. You can also keep listening because this is a new podcast where I'm taking a deep dive into how DPS is using instruction and curriculum and better materials to improve academic outcomes for our students. And here we distill this into something that people who don't necessarily speak the education lingo can understand, including myself. So I always learn a lot when I sit down with our experts. I'm your host, Nicole Brady, and my guest today is Jessica Piwko, the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning for DPS. Thanks so much for being here, Jessica.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Up until this summer, you were the Director of Math for the district from February of 2023 till June of this year. And that's what we're talking about today, math. And you have a long background in math in the district to inform us on the big shift that DPS has seen. So congratulations on your newest role, but tell us a little bit about your background and experience with DPS.
Yeah, thanks. I started in DPS in 2012 as a middle school math teacher, and I did that for quite a few years and just fell in love with it. And from there, decided to expand my impact a little bit, and I became an instructional coach for middle school and high school in the realm of math.
Nice.
And did that for a couple years, and then was like, I want to get back into a school full time, and so I went into the assistant principalship at the middle school level, and then transitioned into the math director role. Was there for the 2.5 years that you mentioned, and now sitting in the executive director of teaching and learning. So still get to hang out with math, but in a different capacity.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we have some things to celebrate and really want to acknowledge. In August, DPS announced an all-time high in math performance on the CMAS test, the Colorado Measures of Academic Success. And then in September, the district was rated green in the Colorado Department of Education State Performance Framework for the first time since 2019, only the second time ever. That wouldn't have happened without the improvements we saw specifically in math. Is that right?
Yeah, there were many factors that contributed to that overall green state performance rating. We do attribute the math gains to a lot of it.
Nice. To really appreciate the success, though, with that and what that really means, we need to talk about where the district was a few years ago. And as we just heard, you've been here for all of this. So when you took the role of the head of math for the district, you really had started to look at some data that informed some decisions. Is that right?
For sure.
Yeah. What did you guys learn?
Yeah. So I think when I came into the math director role in 2023, I entered at a time when the central office math team had really done a lot of work to gather intel about what the math experience should be for students and what the effective practices are that teachers need to implement in order to impact student learning. So I came in with all this information already being gathered and really codified. And so from there, just looking at the data, you see, really insignificant incremental gains year over year. And so that's when we really thought about, we take this vision that we've created for high quality math instruction, and how does that translate into practice? And so that's kind of where the journey started.
So then how did that inform the way schools are teaching math today? Because we have seen this shift to, I think the word you've used is a problem-based learning approach. Can you tell us what that is?
Sure. So I'll back up just a little bit.
Yeah.
There was the No Justice, No Peace movement that was initiated by a group of Black female students in Denver public schools that really made a call to action for us to rethink the materials that they were engaging with in math. And so when we looked at our current state, most instruction was what we call a gradual release model, where you walk into a classroom, the teacher does an example, they do some examples together, and then the students practice the examples on their own.
Got it.
That's a gradual release model. And what we learned from the research and in alignment with this call to action from our kiddos, we had to do something different. And so we transitioned to the problem-based learning model, which is more of a student-centered approach that is also more culturally and linguistically sustaining, meaning that we center students' assets and their funds of knowledge to drive the instruction of the learning. And that's a huge shift. It's basically turning the old model on its head and saying, you know what, the students actually bring in a lot of knowledge and experience. Let's build off of that and use that to help kids get to the learning that is intended for the day.
That's amazing. In fact, I know you did surveys with students. So you actually took a lot of student feedback into this.
We did. So we went out and interviewed hundreds of students and just asked them, what is your current experience in math? What is your ideal experience in math? And what are the topics that you want to learn about in math that would help it become more relevant for you? Because that's what those girls said. This isn't relevant for us. We don't see ourselves in the learning. And so the student surveys, we did many teacher interviews, we did leader interviews. We really did our homework in order to better understand the user, which is the most important.
Incredible, incredible. And the district has seen almost a full opt-in from high schools. We'll get to the elementary in a second, but for high schools, almost complete opt-in for this new way of teaching math. Why do you think that is? I mean, besides the fact that you got that student participation.
Yeah, that was super exciting for us as a large district to get 98% of our schools to opt into the curriculum that we chose. I think in addition to the student, teacher, and leader surveys that we collected information from, we chose to write our own high school math curriculum with the support of a consultant. And so the high school math curriculum in its current form has Denver-specific tasks. It's about different areas of Denver. It's about topics that come up in the city of Denver. And so the school community really latched onto that. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll be able to see ourselves in this. Let's do it. And it's problem-based. So it's a different approach. And they knew that they needed a different approach. We knew that there needed to be a different approach for our kids because the times have changed. And we got up to speed and, basically built a coalition to get people to say yes.
I thought it was interesting learning that high school was where you started this, went to elementary second. Can you explain a little bit about why that was important? And then we can get to how elementary schools are also very largely buying into this as well.
Yeah, so the reason that we started with high school was because the girls who initiated the No Justice, No Peace movement were high schoolers. So that was one huge reason why we did that. And the other reason was that we found that there were really large inconsistencies in the materials that were put in front of students each and every day. And a lot of the times they were below grade level. And we know that that's not what's best for kids. And so that's where we started. And with writing the new curriculum, we did actually a year-over-year rollout. So we did Math 1, which is 9th grade equivalent math, year 1.
I see.
We're rolling out Math 2 this year, which is 10th grade, or Math 2. And so we've really been able as a system to learn about what is supportive of teachers, students, leaders, and families in changing the way we teach math and just implementing a brand new resource.
Yeah. In elementary, meanwhile, there has, as I mentioned, been a very significant opt-in to the new illustrative math curriculum, which is also a problem-based learning model. Is that right? How is that going in elementary schools?
Yeah, it's going great. And based on what we learned with high school, with a year-over-year rollout, we actually did something similar in elementary, where we selected willing schools to do a rollout for us. So we had a subset of schools actually implement IM in year 1. We also, prior to that, interviewed students, teachers, and leaders so that when we vetted resources, we would better understand what we were looking for. And so last year, we had 24 schools who did an amazing job. And as a cohort, they overall grew on the state assessment, the CMAS, which really demystifies the theory of an implementation dip when you have a new resource.
Yeah, interesting. So usually or typically you might see a dip in performance when you have gone through such drastic change in a short period of time. That didn't happen.
That's correct.
Wow. None of this is easy to implement, of course. How did you support educators in some of these changes?
Yeah, so we did a lot of things. And really we wanted to think of the third way and be innovative and creative. And so for both high school and for elementary school, we implemented a series of professional learning mechanisms, which we call them. And so we had our traditional professional learning days that teachers come to on a designated day in the school year and teach them pedagogy, the curriculum, et cetera. And then we also built out learning lab classrooms. So we actually had teachers implementing curriculum in their first year of learning the materials, open their doors to other teachers from around the district to come and learn from them. And that was one of the most powerful mechanisms that we implemented that teachers really received. The other thing was we partnered with a nonprofit, PEBC, which is Public Education Business Coalition. And we did monthly professional learning trainings for teachers and leaders at the same time.
Nice.
So they were in the same space at the same time. Again, learning about the pedagogy of the new curriculum, bridging that with content knowledge. And those were voluntary, and we had, at least 2 people from every school show up to engage in that half-day learning. We also had, we created walkthrough rubrics, which really we have an evaluation framework in Denver Public Schools, but this was different. This was like, what are the standard of excellence for instruction? So we would go in, we would use these walkthrough rubrics and use them as coaching tools, not only to implement the curriculum well, but to meet the standard of excellence for mathematical instruction that is codified in our vision.
Yeah.
And so with all those things kind of playing together and people getting job embedded and continuous professional learning, I think that's why we saw the gains. Also, their willingness to do it. I mean, even these, the first year teachers opening their doors, that's a vulnerable place to be.
Wow.
And we had so many teachers offering up their space, which was monumental.
Amazing, amazing. I want to talk a little bit about middle school because I don't want people to think we forgot about middle schoolers. That's actually the next phase, right?
That's gonna complete the puzzle. So we did high school, we've done elementary school, and now we have middle school, which will really create that true K-12 coherence of a problem-based learning approach.
Awesome, awesome. And I know those are such important years, those transition years for students. So once this is fully implemented, that'll be great. And that is really where you're looking to scale it right now, is get it to middle school, get it to all the schools. What else needs to be done to really grow this to scale?
Yeah, I think it's really continuing doing what we found to work in the other grade bands. And so making sure that we provide those wraparound supports to not only teachers but leaders, and making sure that they have a full understanding of the new model, of the new pedagogy, and just supporting in any way that we can and using what we've learned to really refine the approach.
Awesome. Not changing the topic at all, but I want to talk about one new support this year for math teachers, and this is across all grade levels, an AI tool that the district has brought in called EDIA, and it's a math platform using artificial intelligence. Around 4,000 students in 19 schools are using it this year for the pilot. I had the opportunity to see this in action in Maury Middle School, actually, and I actually have a story on it you can watch on the DPS YouTube channel if you want to learn more about how EDIA works. We may have to devote a whole episode of this podcast sometime to artificial intelligence tools, but this one was really interesting. I mean, the teachers can use it for, creating assignments and getting feedback the way they've used previous platforms as well. The students I saw enjoyed using this AI coach that can kind of prompt them if they're having trouble on a problem. But you were very instrumental in getting EDIA here. So what did you see in it that you felt would be helpful?
Yeah, again, it's thinking of the third way, right? Being creative, being innovative. What we've been doing in the past hasn't provided students what they need, and that's showing up in that historical data. And so when I learned about EDIA, and engaged in their demos, I'm like, this is different. And the way that it's different is that each student does have their own mini teacher that is giving them very individualized feedback in order to allow them access to engage in the tasks.
Yeah.
It is not possible for a teacher to provide differentiated support to 30 different students in a 10-minute period. EDIA offers that. And so that was just really what excited me because it was different.
And to your point about the teachers not, they will and can give every student individual support, but in a short period of time, one teacher pointed out, kids don't want to sit there waiting, and kids nowadays are very used to getting instantaneous
they sure are.
Engagement. So just watching the kids have that tool that they could ask a question. It gave them a little prompt. They could say, well, no, that's not really what I mean. It was keeping them working and keeping them thinking until the teacher then could get over if they needed a little more help.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't tell them, no, you're wrong, or this is the right answer and this is how you should do it. It coaches them through it. It's brilliant.
Awesome.
We're excited about
like
it.
I said, more on artificial intelligence to come. Obviously, we are talking about some positive achievements that the district has had when it comes to math performance in the last couple of months. But how confident are you that we can keep moving in this direction? And we talked a little bit about scaling it, but what else needs to happen?
Yeah, I think, as a large system, I believe that we need to stay the course. I think with us being able to complete the puzzle for high quality instructional materials across K-12 in math with the same instructional model, that is the absolute right move that will continue to help us move in the right direction. I think with the implementation of EDIA and this AI component, that will help us to accelerate the trajectory of our students. And so I think we need to stay the course. We also continue to step back, revisit what's on the table, what do we need to refine. We're not making large pivots, but we're continuously refining and tweaking in order to improve our support that we provide to schools and to teachers, and we solicit feedback from them in order to do that.
This is what the district is sticking with, though, now, because, this is research-backed in terms of the way a district should teach math. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So I want to ask a little bit about how families were involved in this. I know you guys had actual, engagement nights for families as you started to implement these changes to math instruction. And you gave parents ways that they could support their kids in math at home. And I loved that because I am a parent who has a 6th and 7th grader, so I'm getting to that point already where they bring home homework where I know how to do it. It's
probably a different way.
Maybe a different way. It hasn't gotten to the challenging part yet, but it's gotten to the part where I'm starting to realize, okay, they're going to be outpacing me soon, or maybe I still know something they don't know, and I'm trying to fit in those pieces. But how do you just kind of support your student at home when it comes to math? Because not all parents feel as, you can read to your kid, but a lot of parents don't necessarily know how to support them with math.
Yeah, that's right. And especially when kids come home and they talk about how they learned it, or they try to explain it, it's very different than the way that we learned how to do math. The way that we learned how to do math was very procedural. Again, example, where this way it's very conceptual and kids actually understand why the procedure works now, which is the actual learning.
Great.
And so what we advise parents is to just ask a lot of questions. So if a kid has homework and they have an answer, is this right? Well, how'd you get it? Explain to me your thinking. When we're out in the world, when we're out getting food, when we're buying groceries, look at the sale signs. Hey, that says 20% off. What does that even mean? You know what I mean? So there's different developmental questions too for our early, our younger kiddos. It's what patterns do you see? Look at these numbers. What patterns do you see? It's all about patterns, right? And then as they get into middle school, you can start bringing in tax, tip. Let's look at the check together. What would the tip be if we did 20%? What would it be if we did 15%? And so just being very curious as opposed to providing statements, which I think a lot of parents naturally go to is, well, that's not right, or this is how to do it, as opposed to, how'd you get that?
I actually had a chance to talk to a teacher recently at Polaris Elementary who talked about just wanting to instill a love of math in her students before even getting to the numbers part of it. Why is it important for students in DPS to appreciate math, to love it even, to see themselves in it, all of those things that you're working on now?
Yeah, I think it's important just based on, if you go ask a group of adults, about their mathematic ability, 9 out of 10 are going to say, I'm not good at math, right? And we attribute that to just their experience that they had. And we all do math every single day, all day long. And so we're all good at math, but it's this internal mindset that we're not. And so it's really important for kids to love it and see themselves in it so that we kind of change the narrative a little bit on math. And that it's not this scary, crazy thing. It's actually what we need on a daily basis. And with our, increased growing in technologies, math is at the foundation of that. And so we need to really prepare our kids for the jobs that don't even exist yet. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's about. And so the problem-based learning approach really helps and coaches students to be critical thinkers and problem solvers, which is what they're going to need. They might not remember Pythagorean theorem, but they're going to remember how to problem solve, how to think critically, and how to, at least tackle something from the start without, I don't get it, and shutting down.
I love that, love that. Thank you, Jessica, so much for being here to talk about this today.
Yeah.
And for all of you who are listening, we would love feedback as we continue to dig into academic issues in DPS. If you have any ideas, please reach out to me. Again, my name's Nicole Brady. I'm a communications manager with DPS, so you can find me in the communications department. And we hope you'll join us for our next episode next month, where we'll take a deep dive into literacy. Until then, we'll see you next time on The Lesson Plan.